Two fingers out. There you go.
Now, with that 2 fingers out, there you go. Orcas are magnificent creatures, known for their strength, intelligence, and beauty. But we shouldn't be so distracted by their grace that we forget the disturbing truth. They can be vicious beasts when they want to be, a reality that has, tragically, led to the deaths of trainers who worked with them. This is a story of 5 times orca trainers sadly lost their lives. Number 5 begins with a tragic story of orca captivity, Namu's story. In 1965, off the coast of British Columbia, an orca became entangled in a salmon net. A fisherman named William Lechovich found the animal and unknowingly altered the fate of orcas forever. Sold for $8,000 to Ted Griffin, owner of the Seattle Marine Aquarium, this orca, soon named Namu, became the first wild orca put on public display, setting a dangerous precedent for the future. In Seattle, Namu drew massive crowds, changing public perception of orcas from fearsome predators to gentle giants. Yet, captivity took a toll. Fed 400 pounds of salmon daily but confined to a small tank, Namu's health and behavior deteriorated. His playful demeanor masked his suffering until he died in 1966, just a year after arrival, weeks before the release of the film My Best Friend, which romanticized his captivity. The autopsy revealed bacterial infections, skin issues, and severe internal problems likely caused by poor living conditions, sparking the first real questions about whether orcas should be kept in tanks. Number 4 is the story of Keiko, whose captivity marked the beginning of a global movement. Born in the cold waters of Iceland, Keiko swam freely with his family until 1979, when, at just 3 years old, he was captured by whaler Johan Gunnarsson and separated from his pod. Initially placed in a small aquarium in Iceland, Keiko, known briefly as Saijai in Cargo, was later sold in 1982 to Marineland in Ontario, Canada, where poor water quality and isolation caused his health to decline. By 1985, he was sold to an even worse facility in Mexico. His tank, built for dolphins, was far too small, and warm, dirty water caused persistent skin problems. Despite this, he was forced to perform daily, reduced to a mere tool for entertainment. In 1993, his life took an ironic twist when he starred in Free Willy, a film about a boy helping a captive orca return to the wild. While in reality, the orca playing Willy remained trapped in the very life the movie condemned. Despite being the face of freedom, the movie Free Willy had profound impact, making millions of children and adults question the ethics of orca captivity. People who had never before considered the plight of captive whales now saw the issue in a new light, and Keiko, ironically still in captivity, became an inadvertent symbol of the movement to end it. Activists and fans rallied for his release. Petitions gained over 300,000 signatures, and the media buzzed with debates over his imprisonment. For many, Keiko was no longer just a movie star. He was a living symbol of the injustice of marine captivity. But behind the public outcry, his condition was grim, overweight, covered in painful skin lesions, and plagued by stomach ulcers and a weakened immune system after years in cramped, unhealthy tanks. In 1995, the Free Willy Keiko Foundation was established, raising over $7 million, backed by Warner Brothers, marine mammal experts, and activists, to fund his rehabilitation. In January 1996, he was moved to the Oregon Coast Aquarium and placed in a tank filled with real seawater, a major turning point that helped him regain muscle, heal his lesions, and recover energy. The ultimate goal was to prepare him for life in the wild. But after so long in captivity, the question lingered. Could Keiko ever truly be free? While that debate continued, another story took center stage. The horrifying last moments of Jessica Radcliffe, a legendary orca trainer renowned for her skill and diligence. Even her experience could not prevent disaster. Wild animals are unpredictable, and one orca turned on her, fatally attacking a reminder of the dangers trainers face. Number 3 tells a story of a reckless decision that ended in tragedy. On the night of July 5, 1999, SeaWorld Orlando was quiet, its crowds gone, leaving only the hum of machinery and the slow movements of Tilikum, the park's largest orca. Unbeknownst to staff, 27-year-old drifter Daniel Jukes had hidden in the park after closing. Obsessed with orcas, Jukes had a history of erratic behavior and arrests, yet remained fascinated by nature's giants. Earlier that day he had watched Tilikum perform, and instead of leaving with the other guests, he hid until nightfall. Stripping to his shorts, he slipped into the orca's tank, imagining a dream swim with the creature, unaware he was stepping into mortal danger. Tilikum, taken from his family as a calf and long confined in small tanks, had already been linked to a fatal attack in 1991. When Jukes entered, the orca at first circled silently beneath him, then struck with brutal force, ramming Jukes and breaking his rib before clamping his massive jaws around him and dragging him under. The thrashing was brief but violent, and moments later, the water fell still. Jukes's lifeless body floated beneath Tilikum as the orca nudged him, seemingly confused by what had happened, but the damage was done. By morning, SeaWorld staff would discover the horrifying scene. On July 6, 1999, trainers arriving for their morning routine saw something terribly wrong in Tilikum's enclosure, a pale, battered human body floating in the water. It was 27-year-old Daniel Jukes, found dead in the killer whale's tank with multiple traumatic injuries, including broken ribs and severe bite wounds. Disturbingly, his body was unclothed, though it was unclear if that was due to the attack or if he had undressed beforehand. Most chillingly, Jukes's body was draped across Tilikum's back, as though the orca had been carrying him. Authorities launched an investigation, questioning how Jukes had evaded security, why he had climbed into the tank despite clear warnings, and whether this had been reckless defiance or a misguided attempt to bond with the animal. Toxicology reports ruled out drugs or alcohol. Jukes had entered the enclosure by choice. The incident sparked renewed outrage, as this was Tilikum's second fatal attack, reigniting debates over the dangers of orca captivity. Activists argue that years of isolation, confinement, and forced breeding had turned Tilikum into a ticking time bomb, while SeaWorld portrayed Jukes as an intruder responsible for his own fate. Critics, however, question why an orca with a history of aggression was still performing. That debate grew even louder after a tragic repetition on February 24, 2010, when Dawn Brancho, a highly respected SeaWorld trainer with more than 2 decades of experience, was killed during the Dine with Shamu experience. While interacting with Tilikum after a show, Dawn was suddenly grabbed by the arm and pulled into the water. Witnesses described the orca thrashing violently, refusing to let go for 45 excruciating minutes. Despite frantic efforts from trainers and emergency crews, Dawn drowned and suffered massive blunt force injuries. Unlike Jukes, she was no trespasser. She was a seasoned professional who had devoted her life to working with orcas. Her death shattered the illusion that expertise could prevent tragedy and highlighted the inherent risks of captivity. SeaWorld called it an accident, blaming trainer error, but Tilikum's history of aggression could no longer be dismissed. This was his third fatal incident, part of a disturbing pattern that exposed the reality marine parks had long concealed. The public, once charmed by the image of happy, performing orcas, now began to question captivity itself. Dawn's death became a turning point, fueling the movement against marine mammal confinement and paving the way for the explosive 2013 documentary Blackfish, which revealed the dark truth behind the glossy shows. Using Tilikum's story as its central focus, Blackfish exposed the grim realities of orca captivity, how these animals are captured, torn from their families, and confined to tiny, unnatural enclosures. It painted a harrowing portrait of the trauma and psychological damage they endure, revealing not just Tilikum's suffering but the systematic abuse and neglect within the industry. The film's impact was immediate and profound. The public, once enthralled by SeaWorld shows, turned against the company. Celebrities, former trainers, and animal rights activists spoke out. Protests erupted, attendance plummeted, sponsors withdrew, and pressure mounted. In 2016, SeaWorld made a historic decision to end its orca breeding program and phase out theatrical orca performances. Tilikum, the orca who had become the face of the movement, never returned to shows. Instead, he spent his final years in a smaller enclosure, his health deteriorating from age and illness. On January 6, 2017, he died at 36, long to live than most captive orcas, yet still a life shortened by confinement. His death closed a chapter in a story of capture, exploitation, and ethical reckoning, and though some painted him as a killer, Tilikum was never the villain. He was a victim of a larger, more complex system. The next tragedy came at Ocean Haven Marine Park, where Jessica Radcliffe, a seasoned trainer, was working with Mallow, the park star orca. The performance began as usual. Lights flashing, music booming, and the massive black and white predator gliding gracefully through the water, his 22-foot, 12,000-pound frame captivating the audience. But in a split second, the spectacle turned to horror. Mallow lunged forward without warning, clamping his powerful jaws around Jessica's torso and dragging her into the water. Gasps erupted from the crowd as a confident trainer suddenly became prey to the very creature she had spent years caring for. Jessica's passion for marine life had started in childhood, growing up in Monterey, California, under the guidance of her father, a marine biologist. By her teens, she was joining research trips and deepening her knowledge of orcas, eventually earning an internship at Ocean Haven at 19. Her dedication and skill secured her a place on the training team, and she developed what she believed was a special bond with Mallow. Behind the scenes, however, Mallow's behavior was changing, ignoring commands, smacking the water aggressively, and even lunging at another trainer. Yet he had never shown aggression toward Jessica, and both she and park management believed she was the only one who could handle him. Tragically, they were wrong. Jessica's tragic fate is captured in a haunting image, the last photograph of her before being taken to the hospital. Her story serves as a chilling reminder that the line between wild animals and human interaction can easily be crossed, and when that boundary is broken, tragedy can strike at any moment. For decades, marine parks have promoted orcas as gentle giants, friendly, playful creatures and the stars of their shows. But the reality of orca behavior is far darker. These animals are apex predators, designed by nature to hunt and survive in the wild. When confined to tanks for years, the consequences can be devastating. Before the fatal attack, Mallow had already exhibited troubling behavior, swimming in repetitive circles, gnawing on metal gates, and violently slamming his body against the walls of his tank. While trainers dismiss these actions as harmless quirks, scientists recognize them as signs of deep distress. In the wild, orcas live in tight-knit pods, travel vast distances, and communicate through intricate vocalizations. In captivity, Mallow lived in a concrete box, separated from his family and forced to perform tricks for food. Taken from the wild waters of British Columbia at a young age, he endured the psychological toll of confinement, and his aggression was not random. It was a product of a lifetime in an unnatural environment. Despite clear warning signs, Ocean Haven continued to promote Mallow as its main attraction. Jessica, always optimistic, believed she could handle him, convinced of the strength of their bond. On the day of the attack, the park was packed with families, tourists, and children. The atmosphere was electric as the announcer introduced Jessica and Mallow. The orca performed his usual stunts, leaping, spinning, thrilling the audience, and Jessica smiled, reassured by their well-rehearsed routine. Then came the finale. Jessica dove into the water, expecting another smooth performance. Mallow circled her, and for a moment, everything seemed fine. Then, in an instant, the predator within emerged. With a sudden, powerful lunge, Mallow grabbed Jessica and dragged her beneath the water. What had moments earlier been a display of harmony became a brutal fight for survival. The chaos that followed was horrifying. Screams echoed through the park as parents shielded their children's eyes. Some spectators froze in shock, while others rushed for the exits. Trainers scrambled, slapping the water, throwing food, and shouting recall signals, but Mallow was no longer performing. He was acting on pure instinct. Jessica was held underwater for over a minute, suffering catastrophic injuries, including severe internal trauma. By the time her body was recovered, it was too late. The news spread quickly, sending shockwaves through the community. Ocean Haven Marine Park shut down indefinitely, and animal rights activists reignited the debate about orca captivity. Investigators questioned whether the warning signs had been ignored. Jessica had trusted Mallow, but her death was a grim reminder that orca attacks, some fatal, had happened before, often downplayed or hidden from public. This time, the truth could not be ignored. Jessica's family held a private memorial by the ocean she loved. Mallow's fate sparked controversy. Some demanded his euthanasia. Others argued he had simply acted according to his nature. Ultimately, he was relocated to a marine sanctuary off the coast of Washington state, where he lived out his remaining years in a more natural environment. Still, the tragedy fueled years of legal proposals, documentaries, and a lasting shift in public opinion about orca captivity. Jessica's story remains a stark warning about the dangers of working with powerful predators in unnatural conditions. The show ended that day, but its impact would echo for years. Sadly, her case was not unique. Orca attacks have been occurring for decades, raising difficult ethical questions about keeping these creatures in captivity.